Today's inaugural National Economic Council under the able leadership of the Chairman of Council, Vice President Kashim Shettima, deliberated on a number of issues as enumerated by my colleagues. What I'll be speaking on is the contribution by some of the key oil and gas sector heads. We had inputs from NNPC, from NMDPRA, that's Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. We had from the marketers, and of course, it was a robust dialogue, cross-fertilization of ideas by all the executive governors across the length and breadth of Nigeria today. The NMDPRA, as their name suggests, is a regulatory agency that will be providing oversight as to the quality of petrol that will be imported. They've been doing that before now. But now they'll be charged with further ensuring that the quality meets specifications. They will also be issuing import licenses to those that qualify to import petroleum products. And they shared with us, from their point of view, the impact on pricing from the removal of subsidy and the recent unified foreign exchange prices by the Central Bank of Nigeria. So that was very informative. The NNPC GCEO shared with us the impact that subsidy had had on our fortunes in the last so many years. He also discussed with us the problems that are associated or that have been associated with the fact that our refineries were not working. And this was simply because turnaround maintenances were not done as and when due. He informed us that terms, as they call them, are meant to be carried out once a year, but most of these refineries did not have the maintenances done when they should have been done, and because of that, they had become so inefficient that most of them were working at 40–50% efficiency, meaning that you put in a barrel of crude, you only get half a barrel of crude worth of refined products coming out of them. And he said to us in other countries, they would have just been scrapped and sold as metal. We reviewed the state of readiness of different refineries across the country, because by looking at the refineries, we were drawing comparisons as to what would happen if Nigeria had the refining capacity that it needs. Because today we are importing 100% of our petroleum products. And if we had the local refinery capacity, the amount of money we're spending on the transportation charges alone, the insurance charges alone, can be in the upwards of saving us in the excess of 30 to 40 naira per liter. So this was brought to the fore, and the likely gains that we are going to enjoy from the subsidy removal. The marketers under Moman Major Marketers and Depot Owners, marketers called DAPMAN, also made their presentations. Their presentations were around their suggestions on what we should do to cushion the effects of subsidy, and also their concerns about reducing the pump pricing regardless of the fact that subsidy has been removed. They've talked about levies and charges that hitherto are being paid to NIMASA, MPA, and MDPRA themselves, saying that when you look at the pricing template, which the regulatory agency showed us, you will see that the margins for marketers is even smaller than the charges to MPA or to NIMASA or even to the regulator itself, and this should be looked at. They talked about the fact that marketers are being charged 0.05% flat taxes on their turnover, whilst their margin is not even up to 0.05%, of their turnover, and this should be looked into so that they can reduce the pump price to marketers. There were also discussions about the fact that post-deregulation, we've seen a big drop in the consumption of PMS in the country. The drop has gone from 66 million liters a day to about 41 million liters a day. But in the last 1 week or so, we began to see a creep up. And there were discussions around the fact that all of us realized that we were subsidizing all our neighbors from Cameroon to Ghana to Benin to Chad to Niger. We looked at the pricing before the regulation in those countries. When we were selling for about 195, they were selling for about 300, 395. Now we're selling for upwards of 550 naira per liter. And suddenly the prices in those countries have jumped up to 700 and 800 naira per liter. And we wondered, why would those prices jump up? But obviously, the fact is that those countries will continue to depend on us for PMS supply because most of them do not have the wherewithal in terms of foreign exchange to even import PMS. So regardless of whether we deregulate or not, which we have done, we will continue to see smuggled PMS across the borders. The GCO of NNPC says that the position of NNPC now is to be in the active trade of actually trading petroleum products to them, since they do not have the wherewithal to import petroleum products. We decided that we would have a subcommittee of NEC. There will be a subcommittee of NEC on oil and gas that will look at the issues that have been brought to the fore by the marketers, by the regulator, by an NNPC to ensure that we harmonize, we report back to NEC, and if NEC adopts it, it will be presented to Mr. President. Other things that were discussed were other issues that will be sustainable in cushioning the effects of subsidy, because we realize that removal of subsidy is not anything novel. It's been done in the last 15 years by different countries around us. Ghana has done it, Ethiopia has done it, Egypt has done it, Kenya has done it. So there are obviously things to learn from countries that have deregulated successfully. And some of the things that we learn from these countries are things that they did in the areas of providing personal income tax reforms, which are basically decreasing the tax rate bracket, saying those that are the lower end of the tax bracket are either tax exempt or begin to pay lower taxes. We also discussed the issue of increase in non-taxable allowances. So for example, when and if government in its wisdom decides to introduce housing allowances or transport allowances, those kind of allowances should be tax exempt. And those allowances, of course, should be monetized. We talked about energy sector reforms, which was to enhance the efficiency and diversification of our energy mix, going from dependability on petrol to now begin to look at fossil fuels and, of course, CNG. We spoke about energy transition incentive scheme, which is a scheme that government will offer companies that now want to invest in either gas transportation or they want to invest in provision of CNG-powered vehicles, like my colleague mentioned, like we saw today, or companies that want to invest in providing us with electric vehicles. So we spoke about that. We also spoke about the fact that we must look at how to reduce import and excise duties for these alternative powered transportation modes. We spoke about transportation subsidies, meaning that should we begin to give what they call vouchers to the public that will allow them to pay for transportation at reduced prices. We spoke about also agricultural subsidies. These are subsidies that will allow us to continue to maintain food security. Should we now begin to subsidize fertilizer? Should we begin to subsidize our smallholder farmers so that we do not suddenly have a shortage in food supply. Mr. Vice President suggested that a committee of NEC headed by him and a few governors should sit down and look at this array of suggestions, harmonize it, agree on it, and then present it to Mr. President for approval. These are the things that we discussed at NEC today. Thank you very much for listening to me.